Hello everybody, Infinite Shinjo here. Questions? You've got them? I'll answer them. Not gonna waste any more time, just gonna get into these questions. Megate no Gogeta asks, have you heard of character channels on YouTube? They're basically channels that involve doing voices of different anime characters and reacting to different videos and playing games. The most popular ones are Bulma Bunny and Prince Vegeta. And it's very funny that you mentioned that, because I actually did do a reaction to a Prince Vegeta video probably a couple of months now from the time this video comes out. I'll be sure to link it at the end of the video so you can watch it, in case anybody hasn't watched it yet. I plan to do a whole lot more reactions later on, but that's the only one I got at the moment. But I have heard of those channels to an extent. I definitely recognize the name Bulma Bunny, and of course Prince Vegeta. I did a reaction, and I think there's one for Frieza and maybe Cell as well. I'm not entirely sure. Now I'm actually starting to wonder if it's just Dragon Ball related characters or if it's different anime characters. Like if they have one from, let's just say, Mako from Kill la Kill, I'd watch that. But honestly, I didn't really hear much about it until I started posting videos on my own channel, because the idea of it sounds a bit weird at first that you're just imitating the voice, but I guess if they do a good impersonation, now it sounds kind of bad. But if they can perfectly make that voice of, say, Bulma or Prince Vegeta, if they can match that voice almost perfectly that you wouldn't be able to tell if it's the original or not, then that I definitely gotta give them props for. And from the one Prince Vegeta video that I watched, he definitely does a good job of making his voice sound like Vegeta, which is clearly the point of the channel. Creation of Genji asks, do you watch any gameplays on YouTube besides Pokemon? If so, what is your favorite? My favorite game to watch is Overwatch, and I have been watching some Final Fantasy games. And actually, I do recognize the name Genji from Overwatch, because there are a couple of people that I watch that I think dabble in Overwatch a little bit, so I recognize that name. But actually, as far as your question goes, I don't really think... I'm gonna have to recheck with my mind and post-editing, but I don't really think I watch many gameplay videos on YouTube besides Pokemon. The only real one that I do watch on YouTube or otherwise is my good buddy VFist on twitch.tv/VFist, where he plays a whole bunch of awesome games, and you should really check that out. Links in the description. I didn't mean for that to end up being a plug to him, it just kind of happened. But actually, to be quite honest, it's becoming less and less that I even watch anything much on YouTube, let alone gameplay. Because really, even on my days off, I just record videos and watch anime. There's not as much as I watch on YouTube. I'm sure I could watch a lot, but it's really, I don't really know. I guess in a way, it's like, since I'm posting on YouTube, I don't really watch as much YouTube, but luckily I do have my reaction series, which that'll definitely keep me up to date with what's happening on YouTube and videos and whatnot, you know, by watching like one video from one specific channel. That'll definitely keep me in the loop. But I guess as far as any sort of gameplay that I have watched on YouTube, the only real answer I can give is when Shady Penguin posted Duel Links content on YouTube. Unless there's something that I'm missing, then that's really the only answer I have. Ultra Lucario asks, have you seen the promotion anime Super Dragon Ball Heroes? Even though it's 8 minutes long, it is awesome. What are your thoughts on the series? It's actually funny because this comment is like the one with the character channels like Bulma Bunny and Prince Vegeta. I did make a video on Super Dragon Ball Heroes. If I am correct, the video should be out by the time this video comes out. If that video is out, I will link it in the description. As much as I could just say, oh, just watch that video, then you'll know my thoughts on Super Dragon Ball Heroes, I'll give a little bit of my brief thoughts on it. Because really, my tastes change so much. When I make top 10s, I have to do at least 2 or 3 rough drafts till I end up with a list that I'm happy with. But as far as the series goes, if you can really call this series more or less a promotion anime, just as far as enjoyment goes, I really like it. Obviously, there are some concerns, questions that I have with it, like why are Mai and Trunks just in Goku and Vegeta's timeline and nobody seems to question it? I know that they already visited that timeline during the whole Goku Black arc, but it's just like, oh, we're here now. No one's gonna comment on it. Nobody's gonna ask about it. But okay, you're just here now. Which, I guess, kind of makes sense that they gotta include them in there, because I can imagine a lot of people like Trunks as a character. I know my brother does. But I've only watched through like the 4 episodes that are out. The 5th episode did just come out right before I recorded this. I didn't watch it yet, but I feel like one episode isn't really going to change my mind one way or the other on it. But I guess a short answer to it would be, it's a fine series. It's short. It makes it easier for me to binge through if I get far back in the series and I gotta catch up. And clearly there are some flaws, like with the whole why Mai and Trunks are just there and nobody's gonna question it. But at the end of the day, it's not really plot heavy. It's not really meant to further a grand story. It's just here to promote Super Dragon Ball Heroes. Ikuze Gikoga asks, have you seen Dragon Ball Absalon web series by Melavelli? I hope I pronounced that right. It's awesome. It's one guy doing it on his own. He does a great job. And I haven't heard of it. I haven't seen it. But that obviously doesn't mean that it's not good, or doesn't mean that it's bad. Obviously, everybody's got their own personal taste. I did write it down to look up, and I'll probably have already watched a couple of episodes of it by the time this is being rendered, so I will give my thoughts on that in post-editing, I guess. But just from what I'm hearing about it, it sounds like it's kind of like Masako X's Dragon Ball R&R, where it's not really canon to the Dragon Ball series, but it's more or less a fan series. But if it's just one dude doing it on his own, that is definitely impressive. Because honestly, there are just times where I'm thinking, am I going to be able to run this YouTube channel by myself? He's running a whole web series. But as much as I would just love to just turn this into a reaction video and watch a couple of videos about it, I'm gonna leave that in my spare time and just just give my thoughts on that in post-editing. So sorry that I didn't really answer your question yet, but I promise when post-editing comes into effect and I'm working on rendering this, then they'll give you your answer. Omnizernius asks, what was the worst and best Digimon series for you? And whoo boy, honestly, not even a slam against Digimon or anything, but there are just times that I think, oh yeah, Digimon is actually a thing. Because when it comes to 90s anime that people always talk about, it's usually either Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon. And of course, the whole Digimon versus Pokemon conspiracy sort of thing isn't really helping Digimon's case at all. Although I think Digimon might have come first. I know that I questioned this before, but I can't remember if Digimon came first or Pokemon came first. And I mean, at that point, you can't really go off of the air date because one could have been planned out 10 years in advance when one could have been planned out 5 years, but that's not really the question here. The worst and best Digimon series. I really have only watched a couple of them, so I really can't give a fair answer. The ones that I watched were the original, obviously, Adventure 2, just finished Tamers a little while ago, and I think Appmon. I think Appmon was the most recent one that I watched, and I think those were the only ones that I watched fully. So, going off of the ones that I watched, I would say, I kind of have to say the best one is the original, don't I? Because honestly, I could just say, oh, I like Digimon Tamers because of its whole crazy storyline that it has. But if it's just my personal opinion, I feel like I gotta say the original. I'm nostalgia blind at this point and I don't even care. So the worst one then. So since the original one is the best in my mind, then I have to pick the worst between Adventure 2, Tamers, and Atmon. And honestly, if I would have to pick one based off of the ones that I have watched, I think I'm going to have to say Atmon. Because the one good thing that I can say about the other two, Adventure 2 brought back the original cast. That was cool. Tamers, of course, that whole dark storyline, and I really liked where the storyline was taken. But when it comes to Atmon, there's not really much to write home about. Because the main character's thing is just like, I can't do anything, I can't be a main character. And even the, air quotes, plot twist at the end with his best friend actually being on the evil side, I saw that coming from, what was it, episode 3, episode 4 maybe? Right after Haru met up with Gatchmon, his best friend Eugene is just looking and he's got that red glow in his eye. And from that instant, I knew, yep, something was going to be happening. Oh, by the way, spoilers for Atmon, although it's probably already ruined at this point. I'll probably put a disclaimer before I start talking about him. But the thing with that plot twist, if you can even call it that, is his best friend turns evil. He's going to help Leviathan take care of destroying the world or whatever. But then it's just like, oh no, just kidding, I'm going to sacrifice myself in the end anyway. And it's just like, there's very little room that he starts thinking, maybe what I'm doing is wrong. Maybe I am in the wrong. And even the whole plot line of the side characters was more or less just scrapped. They briefly go over it in a couple of episodes, but overall, they didn't do much with it. Now, with all of that being said, I did still enjoy Atmon as a series. I definitely got attached to the characters, and it's one of those things where it's an anime that I'm watching, and in the moment, I think it's the best thing in the world. Like, right now, I just started Girls Last Tour, and I'm just thinking, this is the best anime in the world. But give it a couple of months, and I'll look back and think, it was alright, nothing too crazy. But I think, short answer to this question, after probably 10 minutes of rambling, best Digimon series, probably Adventure, closely followed by Tamers. Worst, Atmon, just because it's not really anything special. It's a fine series, but it doesn't really develop the side characters that much. I would have preferred a little bit more development on their part. And the plot twist at the end was just so obvious, and they turn it around within a couple of episodes anyway. Finally, to round off this video, Sparkling Primarina asks, what would you think if Game Freak implemented Pokemon Fusion into Gen 8 or future gens? I think it would be really awesome to fuse two Pokemon together. And it's actually funny because they already did that. Obviously they did that with Kyurem, and people thought they were going to do that with, what was that, Sun and Moon? Because the whole Z Crystal on the logo looked like something from a manga, I think it was. I think that's how the story went. But as far as what I would think if they would incorporate it, I would be fine with it. I would just be wary of how it would work, because I know that there are fan games that fuse Pokemon together, but how would they take the typing? Like, say you fuse a Wingull, water flying type, with Incineroar, fire dark. They fuse those two types together, and what would the new type be? Would it take the primary type of the Wingull or the primary type of Incineroar? But really, I wouldn't be surprised if Game Freak decides to implement Pokemon Fusion, because like I mentioned already, they had Kyurem and Black 2 and White 2 fusing with Reshiram or Zekrom depending on the version. they had an Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, Necrozma basically fusing with Solgaleo or Lunala. And even Ash Greninja, to an extent, could be considered a fusion as well. It's almost like Game Freak is trying to test the waters to see how people would react to a fusion of sorts. And I'll be fine with it. I'm just wondering and curious how it would be gone about. Like, would they just use DNA splicers on everything? Although I feel at that point, if they implement Pokemon Fusion, then people are just gonna call Pokemon a ripoff of Digimon because they already did Fusion in Digimon Fusion, I think it was called. Or Digimon Frontier in the dub, I want to say. I can't remember, I didn't watch that series. But I'll be fine with them incorporating Pokemon Fusion. I would just be worried that if you fuse the two mons together, then you wouldn't really be inclined to use one of the two that was originally made up of that fusion. Like the Wingull and Incineroar example from earlier. If you fuse those two together and make, say, a water-fire type, then there would really be no reason to use a mon like Incineroar at that point. And it would be kind of like the fusion overshadows one of the ones that it was made of the fusion, if that makes any sense. But that is going to do it for this Q&A. I hope that the video wasn't too long. I feel like it probably isn't, and half of the stuff I cut is going to be me rambling. But that's okay, because I'm used to cutting my rambling. So, if you guys enjoyed this video, do not forget to hit that like button down below. Subscribe for really anything else. This video, if you're watching it on the day it's posted, will be up the 19th. And in little less than a month, I should actually say, the channel is going to go over a bit of a revamp. Not really anything too drastic, just gonna have a new logo, new intro, new outro. Even though you might be or have already watched this if you're coming up to this video a month after the new intro and outro, but whatever. Make sure to leave any questions that you have in the comments of any of these Q&As. I'm 90% sure that I have covered all the questions that have been asked so far. I looked back on the second episode and I answered all the questions from there. All of these are taken from the third episode. So if there's a question that you asked in the first episode or any of the episodes that I didn't get to yet, you can just leave it in the comment section again. I'm really bad at stuff like that. I'm trying my best to get a system where I can just answer the questions easy, but if I miss one, it's not on purpose, it's just that I'm an idiot. So, I will see you in the next video. Momentai. 大体エスタデイ365日分の学びをカバンに